biggest benefit at the moment is anyone making Aliyah in 2026 essentially gets an exemption from paying any income tax for the next 5 years.
In Israel?
In Israel.
It's insane.
If you're earning up to like 1 million shekels a year in 2027 and 2028, you get a full exemption from income tax, which
That's
means
huge.
that you're saving 300,000 shekel, 400,000 shekels
Oh my God.
for each of those years. But it's a law that only applies to those that make Aliyah until the end of this year.
So the time is now.
Yeah.
Okay, Nadav Ellingson, thank you so much for being here and welcome to Call Me Israeli.
Thank you so much for having me.
So can you tell me a little bit about your background? How did you get to where you are? How did you even come to Israel?
Yeah, sure. So I've got quite a diverse background. I made Aliyah when I was 23, started in Ulpan, went into the army. And at the time I thought I was going to develop out a career working with kids with special needs.
Wow.
I had some background with that in Australia, working with young adults with autism and through Bnei Akiva. I went through a bit of a training with a certain organization. Anyway, decided that although it's an area I'm passionate about, not something that I would work in day to day. And then I had an opportunity to join a founding team in a high-tech company. And it's a company we built out for about 7 years, raised about $20 million.
Oh my God, wow.
About 100 employees. And in that company, I had a range of roles, including CFO. And that was really where I learned a lot about finance in Israel, managing employees, payroll, options, pension, tax, a lot of the different topics that I deal with day to day now working with clients.
So finance immediately interested you?
Yeah, I mean, finance is something I've been involved in my whole life to some extent, starting from treasurer of youth movements and scouting movement in Australia. I invested from a very young age. My mum taught me how to invest in stocks when I had money from my bar mitzvah from age 13. And I always had various jobs throughout my teenage years. So yeah, finance was always something that's really interested me. And then I did some work on a volunteer basis with Olim.
What is that?
It's a nonprofit in Israel, a really, really important organization that has 3,000 volunteer mentors around the country that each get paired with a family in financial crisis, and work with them over months to help them balance their budget, restructure debt, and hopefully get to a place where they know how to manage their money, at least on the most basic level, to make sure that the income is higher than expenses. And so that was my first exposure to working one-on-one with families in the finance area.
Wow. Okay. So can you tell me what do you do now in the finance world?
Yeah. So I do two things. I'm a financial planner and financial educator. So when it comes to planning, I sit down one-on-one with families, understand fundamentally what are their goals, what are they trying to achieve, and at the end of the day, that's where financial planning starts and stops. Like, you really want to know what's important to a family, and then using finance tools to be able to say, how are we going to get there? Looking at your month-to-month cash flow, how much you earn, how much you spend, looking at the assets and the money that you have now, and structuring it in such a way to be able to reach those goals.
Wow. Okay. That's amazing. So how many families do you think you've worked with over the past couple of years?
I've worked one-on-one with about 300 to 400 families.
Wow.
Over the past 4 or 5 years. Plus there's another 500 families that have done our investment program. We have courses online who have learned how to get started investing as English speakers in Israel.
I feel like if you are an English speaker in Israel or an Anglo, everyone knows about you. I know that I have known about you for years and your company, because I feel like finances is at least one of the things amongst my friends of what we talk about the most. Everyone wants to be financially successful here. And if you're in Israel, it's obviously a topic. And if you're outside of Israel, I know a lot of the questions that I get are about how to be financially successful here and how it's possible, because I feel like there's a huge, I guess I want to say misconception, but I want you to kind of explain that being financially successful in Israel is extremely hard and not possible. And that's actually a lot of the reason that people give for not wanting to make Aliyah. So what do you have to say to that?
Yeah. Firstly, I find it really interesting that it is a common topic of conversation with you and your friends. I find that for a lot of people, finance is something that stays in the home, and that's even if it is discussed between the couple.
So I felt like in America, it's kind of like that. Like it's very nuanced. Like no one really talks about it. But here, it's like at our Shabbat table, we'll be like, "How much do you make? Like, what are you doing? Like, how are you able to afford this house? Like, did your parents help you? Like, are you doing it on your own? I don't know. Maybe it's more of like an Israeli type thing that we all just ask about it, or maybe it's just me. I don't know. But I feel like people are transparent here because we all want to help each other be successful. And maybe it's because we're kind of all like people my age are just all starting out and we're not like making millions of dollars. So it's more like it's less taboo to like talk about what you're making. But
yeah, very cool. Which I find to be so important because finance can be taboo, certainly among some circles. And being able to start talking about it and just share experiences and share learnings can be crucially important. So in terms of like financial success in Israel, first we have to think about like what is financial success, because at the end of the day, like finances are a tool to be able to achieve the goals that we want to in life. And so like when I think about financial success, I think it really comes down at its core to two things. Like number one, being able to secure your future in terms of financially and all the things that you want to achieve, and to be able to enjoy the present. And if we look at it in that context, then firstly, financial success is very different for every person.
Right.
And I see that day to day. Like I once created an image, a summary table that had a look at 4 different families that each had 3 kids living in Israel, similar kinds of backgrounds. One family spent 15,000 shekel a month.
Wow.
125, 135, and 145,000 shekel a month. And it was broken down, looking at the differences. But each of those families was quite happy, quite satisfied with their spending level. And for them, that's ultimately what brought them enjoyment in the present, for them to be able to get the balance right with what mattered to them. So I don't remember the specifics, but for example, the 15,000 shekel family, what was really important to them was having the freedom from financial burden. In other words, not having to have like a very large mortgage that you had to rely on and pay every month, to be able to potentially have periods where you don't have to work in jobs like education, where you don't have to earn a lot. And that can be one definition of financial success for a family.
Right.
Whereas with other ones, it looks quite different.
That's so true. I guess like obviously it seems like that's something obvious, but like I said, amongst me and my friends, I feel like maybe it's just in Karmegat because which is where I live, and so many people there are buying their apartments and buying, houses because even just 5 years ago, it was so much cheaper than it is now. And everyone has this like pressure to get into the market before it goes too much that that they can't afford it. So I think that's buying a place is probably, at least amongst the people that I've spoken to, one of the ways that people define financial success. And I feel like that's really hard because that's a lot of money. Like to buy a place in Israel, I grew up in the Bay Area in California, and I think the Bay Area is one of the like highest priced places in the United States. Like for just like a really normal house that's like nothing fancy is $2 million. And like I kind of grew up thinking, okay, like wherever I live, like at least, it's not going to be $2 million. And thank God, like it's not in Karmegat now if you're buying a regular apartment, but in Israel, real estate is really high. I think that's really kind of like a difficult reality to like let sink in for people that want to buy a place here. So I'd love to speak with you about that and like your perspective on, I guess, like how realistic do you think it is for you to be a homeowner in Israel?
Yeah, it's probably the most difficult financial goal for young families to achieve. And it's one that I deal with clients every day, because as you said, it usually is a goal for families that don't yet own property in Israel. It's often number one on the list. And it's not always possible. From what I've found quite consistently, you have to have like one of 2 or 3 things if you really want to be able to buy a home. So either that you've managed to save up quite a lot of money already. So you're coming into the project of starting to financially plan to buy a home with quite a large lump sum. And some people are able to do that if, for example, they worked a lot before they had a family and were able to save up, particularly for those that got married a little later and were able to save up significant amounts. If the family has a high savings rate per month. So I put together a guide quite a while ago, which we titled How to Buy a Home in Israel Without Help. And I ran all the numbers there and had a look at how you can possibly save up enough to be able to not just reach the required down payment, but to have a reasonable mortgage and also to keep up with the growing prices as time goes on and as you're saving. And I found you have to get to a savings rate of about 10,000 shekels per month and keep that up consistently over many years in order to give yourself the chance at least of buying in the merkaz. The other two options are family help. Maybe we can talk a bit more about that.
Yeah.
Or buying in the periphery, buying in a place that's much cheaper. And then it does become a little easier to make things work.
Okay, so let's talk about the practicality of that. So let's say saving 10,000 shekel a month. So I want to be transparent and thank God me and my husband were able to do that for many years. And we bought a place on paper a couple of years ago in Karmegat. So Karmegat is in the south, and like you said, it's not in the center. So that's why we were able to do it. It's not like we wouldn't have been able to afford a place like where you live in Modi'in or in Jerusalem. So I think that, that was kind of one thing that we were able to do. But let's break that one down and talk about numbers. So how much does someone realistically have to make in Israel to be able to save 10,000 shekel a month?
Yeah, so it depends on family size and state. But let's say, for example, you're a family with two young kids. And from the families that I work with two young kids, average expenses are probably around 25,000 shekels per month.
Yeah.
In that region.
That's around what ours are.
Okay. And so to save 10,000, then you have to be bringing in 35,000 shekel after tax. Now, if you have two spouses that are both working and both earning well, and so essentially that 35,000 is split 17 and a half for each of the different spouses, then before tax, you have to bring in about 24,000 shekels, something in that region without having the calculators in front of me.
Yeah.
And that's well above average income.
What is the average income?
Average income, it's gone up quite a bit over the last few years, but I believe at the moment it's about 13 or 14,000 shekels before tax.
Okay.
And that's pulled up a lot by high tech. So if you were to remove high tech, then the average income drops down dramatically to much, much below that.
Along that topic, maybe it's just because of the people that I associate with, but the Anglos that I know, most of them work in high tech. Is that something that you've seen amongst the Anglos who are here, or is that just I'm kind of in my own world?
I would say maybe less than half of the clients that I work with work in high tech when I count all the spouses together.
Right.
So sometimes one of the spouses work in high tech, but not necessarily the other one.
Right.
People are in a lot of other professions as well, whether that's healthcare or government, lawyers, management, finance. And some of those professions can also pay similar amounts. So, you can earn 25,000 shekel and then growing from there. And there are many that don't. And so if you have at least one spouse working in high tech, then you can get to a balance where you're bringing in about 35,000, but it's not easy by any stretch. And the other thing you have to be really careful of is lifestyle creep. So what I see with a lot of clients that I work with, no matter how much they're earning, whether they're earning as a couple 20, 30, 40 or 50,000 shekel after tax, their expenses are often pretty close to the level of income that they're bringing in. And it's very easy to continue to increase your expenses to spend the money that you have. And it's challenging to say, I'm going to make sure to keep 10,000 shekel free specifically for a home, for a home every month, among all the other goals that I want to save up for bar mitzvahs and for a new car and a wedding for the kids in the future, the kinds of things that my clients often are looking to save for. it's a significant challenge.
So yeah, you keep saying that it's like really hard and it's a big challenge, and I definitely like I see that because I've done that. I feel like it's been challenging the past couple of years for me and my husband to like earn a lot of money and save be able to save that amount. But at the same time, maybe this is like my bias because I was able to do it, but it seems like for me it's realistic. And one of the reasons that I am sharing this part of my life is because I want other people to know that it's realistic. Just because maybe not everyone has that, I do want to I want to tell people that it is realistic. So I guess I wonder if hard and challenging kind of doesn't mean realistic. Do you get my question? Like what, I would just love to yes, okay, so you can have a job that, like we said, we have to make around 24,000 each, right? 24,000 shekel a month each. So those jobs are mostly jobs in high tech, and then you end up saving 17. But like even someone who makes that salary, like you're saying, can basically live at their means or above their means, and then they won't be saving. So I guess like if two spouses are making, I don't know, like 15,000 shekel each, like I assume that they can still buy a home eventually, but maybe just not not within the next couple of years. Is that accurate?
Potentially. So I work with many clients who can save 2,000 or 3,000 shekels a month.
Okay.
So firstly, let's put that into context. One of the amazing things in Israel is that there's a lot of automated savings that you don't necessarily see.
Okay.
And so whereas overseas, you might have to think very actively about the money that I'm putting away for retirement and how much that needs to be. In Israel, because the law essentially requires about 20% of your salary to be automatically deposited into the retirement system, into pension, it means that those needs are met. And then often people also have Keren Hishtalmut and other savings, especially in high tech, look at bonuses and employee equity of different sorts. So a family can be very financially successful, even if maybe they're not right now looking at buying a home, even if they're saving only 2,000 or 3,000, because beyond that, they might be saving 10,000 or 15,000 shekels automatically into the other vehicles.
Okay, so you're saying that Israel basically automatically deducts a certain amount of money from your salary each month that goes to your pension and retirement. So what does that, can you kind of break down those average numbers for me so I can understand that? And I don't know if you are aware of the numbers that, I guess let's take America or just outside of Israel for an example. Yeah. What is the contrast there?
Yeah, sure. So when it comes to retirement, firstly, just to give a benchmark, when you do the math, you really want to put aside about 15% of your salary before tax every month consistently into an investment account so that it grows in order to be able to reach a comfortable retirement where you maintain a similar level of lifestyle to the one that you had before you stopped working. In Israel, automatically you've got about 20% being put aside.
Oh, wow.
Which is one of the highest in the world. And it means that for the average person today who is 40 years and younger, because it means that when they started working, they were in this new system, which started about 15 to 20 years ago, they'll be able to retire comfortably just from a pension, assuming that they were employees. So maybe we'll talk about business owners another time because that's a different matter altogether. But if you're employees and you work consistently throughout your career, then you can really have a comfortable retirement. Overseas, so if you have a look at America, the UK, Australia, for example, the average retirement contribution for those people that have retirement accounts, in Australia it's compulsory, in America it's certainly not, depends whether you've got a 401k with an employer match, and you're putting aside about 10% of your salary, which means that when you're doing your personal financial planning, you need to be actively thinking about how much more I'm going to be putting aside for something like retirement. And that's one of the nuances when someone makes Aliyah and suddenly you don't have to think about that retirement piece too much anymore. It means that it frees up certain other money it frees up money for savings for things like a home.
Right.
Should we come back to the question about, I guess, saving for a house with the lower income?
Yeah, definitely.
So if you have a family that privately is only saving maybe 2,000 or 3,000 shekels,
right,
if they don't have any family help and they're not coming into it with already 500,000 shekel or above, then it's very hard to see a clear path to being able to afford a home somewhere in the like Merkaz type area. And usually what I do with those families, if they have a goal to buy a home, is we think about how can we maximize your savings and investments today to open yourself up to other opportunities in the future. So the future is very much unknown with regards to our careers, whether you'll one day work for a company that has an exit and be able to get money that is unexpected, that you'll receive an inheritance that is either expected or unexpected at some point in the future. And often when you can set yourself up in the best possible way by taking that 2,000 shekels and investing it every month and doing that consistently, you can get to the point where in 10 or 20 years, you have saved up hundreds of thousands of shekels. And maybe that alone might not be enough for a down payment in the areas that you're looking at. But when you can then combine that with something else that comes along, and it doesn't always, but often it does, then it can suddenly become possible.
Okay. And that you're speaking specifically about buying in the center of Israel versus like if you save up, I don't know, a couple 100,000 shekel, you could buy not in the center of Israel.
It is possible. So if we've got people from our community that are moving to Kiryat Shmona soon, people that are willing to go out to the Golan or to go further south, there are apartments available for 1 million shekels. Now, if we think about, let's say, 1 million shekel apartment, how much do you actually have to save up?
Yeah.
In Israel, you need a minimum down payment of 25%.
Right.
And then you have to have a look at whether you can afford the rest of the mortgage. So if the mortgage is 750,000 shekels, then your payment per month is about 4,000 shekels per month.
Okay.
Which is, a very reasonable level.
Yeah.
And to save up 250 plus costs, let's say 300,000 shekels, you can do that in, let's say, 10 years, if after accounting for inflation and property growth, you're saving 3,000 to 4,000 shekels per month.
Okay, so that's around like $1,000 per month that you would basically be saving for around 10 years. And then not in the center of Israel, it's possible to afford a home.
It is.
Okay. Well, I mean, I guess that's optimistic and that's like some good news that like it really is possible here.
Yeah.
Okay, so sorry we're jumping so much, but back to the retirement. At what age can you retire in Israel versus, I don't know, outside of Israel that you would like collect on that money?
So, I mean, firstly, if we have a look at the technical retirement age, for men it's 67.
Okay.
For women, it was 62 and it's been growing to 65. But for people that are younger today in their 30s and 40s, the retirement age for women is 65. But that doesn't mean that you have to retire then. So there are lots of people who enjoy their work.
Right.
I can tell you that I personally hope that I'll be doing this kind of work well into my 80s.
Oh, wow. Good for you.
Maybe not to the same kind of extent and load as I've got today.
Yeah.
But there are many, many people that I've worked with who are working, in their 70s. And you can also retire much earlier. So by law, you're able to withdraw from your pension from age 60. There are certain tax benefits that come into play when you hit retirement age, but you can take it out penalty-free from age 60.
Okay.
And then there are many people who plan for some form of early retirement, even before that point. And I've done many financial plans with individuals whose main goal is to reach some form of early retirement. So that might mean stopping work altogether. It might mean switching careers to something that earns a lot less. And when you think about the automated savings rate in Israel, then you have a look at Keren Hishtalmut, which is an investment account where a lot of money goes in over the years. Keren Hishtalmut is not a compulsory requirement from the government, but a lot of people in high tech, in education, in government, in other industries as well, have a Keren Hishtalmut where about 1,500 shekel goes into that account every month. And over 20 years, you can build up 1 million shekels there,
Oh, wow.
which can become either an early retirement fund or a fund to help kids with weddings and down payments. And so there are a lot of opportunities in Israel for saving and investment. And I find that with my clients who are earning a reasonable amount, once we can sit down, have a look at needs, have a look at some financial planning, it is very possible to be able to achieve things that you may not have thought were possible in Israel, like early retirement, like helping kids be able to buy or have some money at least towards being able to buy a home in the future.
Wow. Okay. So can you explain a little bit about what Keren Hishtalmut is? I know you said, so it's basically an investment that your work makes, but also you, like if I'm making 10,000 shekels a month from an employer, did they put in a separate like 1,500 shekels a month, let's say, or is it coming from my salary?
Yeah. So let's take the most typical, because Keren Hishtalmut is typically received up to a salary of 15,000.
Okay.
And so if you're earning 15,000, for example, then the employer is putting in 7.5% of your salary. It's about 1,100 shekels.
Oh, wow.
And then from your own pocket, they're deducting 2.5%. So it's another about 400 shekels. And that 1,500 is being deposited into an investment account.
Is there an equivalent of that in the US? It's like I
don't believe there's something that's very similar.
So Israel is basically doing us a favor.
It's not from the government, and it's not a requirement.
Okay.
It's a benefit which employers can choose to offer to employees.
Okay.
The government is doing a favor in the sense that they're giving tax benefits on the Keren Hishtalmut.
Okay.
So the 1,100 shekel the employer is putting in, the government's not taking any tax from that. Essentially, the employer is able to pay you some money without the government taxing it.
Oh.
And then all the growth in the investment account is completely tax-free. So it means that if you make 10% on your account, let's say you've got 100,000 shekel in your Keren Hishtalmut, and you make 10% because the stocks went up 1 year, that 10,000 shekel of growth is completely tax-free. You don't have to pay any tax. And you don't have to pay
even when you take it out?
Even when you take it out.
Wow, that's incredible.
So it's an incredible vehicle because of those tax benefits. And for anyone who's an employee, in Israel, I would highly encourage them to think about, either speak to their employer or to think about their career development over the coming years, and to think about how they can get to the point where they have a Keren Hishtalmut, because it's another automated investment vehicle which isn't locked up till retirement. It is locked up for 6 years, but after the 6 years, it's open, liquid. You can use it for anything.
Wow.
And it has all those benefits.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. So in terms of retirement, say as like a woman, I want to retire and I'm like, okay, I'm done at 65. How much money can I take out every month at 65? Is it the same amount that I was making as a salary, or it's less, or what is the?
It depends on how much you saved up. So the way that it works is you take a look at your balance in your pension account. Let's say you've got 2 million shekels saved up in a pension account. And also these numbers that I'm talking about are not imaginary.
Okay.
When you save up for 40 years at a regular salary in Israel, you would expect to have millions in your pension account.
At the average salary, you're saying?
Yeah, at like an average salary.
Wow.
And then to calculate how much you would receive as like income, as a kitzbah, which is what's called in Hebrew in Israel, you essentially divide the number by 200. So if we take 2 million, that works out to be 10,000 shekels per month. So if you've got 2 million shekels in your pension account and you choose to turn all of it into a monthly income, then the investment house will pay you almost a guaranteed 10,000 shekel per month for the rest of your life until you die, regardless of how long you live.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's how the system works.
That's pretty incredible.
And so if you imagine that you've got, let's say, 2 spouses and each of them have 2 million shekels in their account, and then you turn that into a 20,000 shekel monthly income, on which you don't, at those levels, you pretty much pay no tax.
Wow.
Then that can be a comfortable lifestyle. And if you earned more during your life, then about 10,000 shekels per month, and you'll probably end up with more than 2 million if you were consistent and if the money was invested and
right.
and the like.
Oh my God, that is so cool. I'm so excited for 65. Okay, amazing. So, okay, I would get that amount every month, and because I find it really interesting. Like, I'm just thinking of my grandparents in America. Like, thank God my great grandma lived until like, I think she was like 106 or something. Wow. And
my grandfather is 102.
Really? Oh my gosh. So crazy. People are living so much longer these days. And my grandma is in her 90s. And like, I know that, you know, through my mom, that I know that for both of their lives, like we've had conversations about like, okay, well, she's kind of like running out of retirement. So it's so crazy.
Running out of retirement money.
Right. it's crazy to think that Israel, there's like no time limit.
Yeah, well, these products do exist overseas as well. It's called an annuity.
Okay.
And essentially what it is, when someone gets to retirement stage, there are many options you can take, but the two main ones are either to say, okay, I've got 2 million shekels, I'm going to manage it myself. Every year I'll take out 3 or 4%. I'll live off that, but I'll be subject to risk. So if it's invested, it needs to be invested to be able to last that long.
Yeah.
If the stock market goes up, great. But if the stock market goes down and I have to still keep taking out my 10,000 shekel every month in order to live, then it can potentially put the amount at risk. I could talk for 2 hours about those concepts about safe withdrawal rate and how much to take out. That's one approach, where usually what happens is in the average market, you take out a certain amount every month, but it grows faster than that. And so when you die, you often have a significant inheritance to be able to pass on.
Wow.
But you're exposed to the risk. The other option is you can say, I want to remove that risk. So I'll take my 2 million shekels, I'll trade it in for an annuity. So I don't have the 2 million shekels anymore, but I do have a company that is promising to pay me 10,000 shekels every month for the rest of my life until I die, no matter what age that is.
Wow.
And so often a combination of those two can be a really good strategy for retirement.
Okay. And what about people who make Aliyah after they're retired? What happens then?
Yeah. So let's take someone from America, for example.
Yeah.
And they make Aliyah. Typically, you'll have Social Security. And the really good thing about the tax treaties between America and Israel is that Social Security is not taxed in Israel.
Okay.
So, and also the American government can deposit it directly into your Israeli bank account in shekels.
Oh, wow.
So you don't have to worry about kind of the logistics around that at all, which is cool. My wife's grandparents actually just made Aliyah, and they've just been organizing all of that.
Wow. Must be helpful to have you to help them.
Yeah. And so you've got income. Most people will have some level of income from Social Security. And then it depends what other assets people have built up. Because in America, especially people that are retired today and didn't necessarily have, maybe large 401ks and matches and the like, they have investment accounts. They might have certain retirement accounts. And ultimately, someone who deals with retirement financial planning, which I do less of, I mostly work with people aged 20 to 50, would sit down, would have a look at their automatic income streams like Social Security, the lump sum that they have remaining, and do a plan to see what kind of lifestyle and what kind of level of expenses you can manage. And you have to treat it quite conservatively because you don't want to run out of money before you pass away.
Right. So what are the biggest financial mistakes that you think people make here?
Okay, so I mean, I see many all the time. I think the biggest ones relate to the ones where you've got lots of money, and I'll explain kind of what I mean, where you've got lots of money and lots of time. So the best example of that is retirement savings, given that we're on retirement savings now. When you think about something that is really, really hard to fix after the fact, it's making sure that you're putting aside enough for retirement and that it's invested well. And so take somebody who doesn't have compulsory retirement savings, someone who's self-employed. The government requires them, in theory, to put aside like 500 or 1,000 shekel a month, which is nowhere near the 15% that we spoke about earlier for most people.
Okay.
And so because it's always difficult for any family, whether in Israel or overseas, to cover all of their day-to-day needs, it can often be tempting to say, I'll deal with retirement, when I'm 40. I'll deal with retirement when I'm 50. But that's a major mistake, because once you get to that point, if you actually want to get to 2 million shekels or 4 million shekels between a couple in your retirement account, you do the math, and like, I have to put aside 20,000 shekels every single month just into my retirement account. It doesn't become possible anymore.
Right.
When it comes to compounding and investing, starting earlier, starting 5 years earlier, 10 years earlier for any kind of long-term savings is like magically impactful.
Wow.
When you look at the numbers, it's exponential growth whenever you look at investments. And so number one, not putting aside money for retirement consistently from a young age. Number two is not paying attention to how that money is invested. A lot of people don't know, but we have control over how the money in our pension account is invested. And if you haven't decided one way or another, it'll be in a default fund, which is very conservative. It's got not enough usually allocated to stocks and a significant amount allocated to bonds, which means it's not growing as fast. And it might mean over 30 years that you have $1 million shekel less in your retirement account.
Oh my God.
Not because of your contributions, but because of the way that you chose to invest the money. So like in terms of impactful mistakes, I think those are some of the bigger ones. I think the other one is not putting focus on your career and income earning potential. And rather, if you've got any time to devote to finances, focusing too much on like some of the smaller things and, not spending 5 or 10 shekel here or there.
Yeah.
What I often find with families, I sit down with them, it's not exclusively, but usually when we're having a look at a budget, families are not wasting money. 80% of the families that I work with are spending on the things that are important to them and would be really difficult for them to reduce further than that. And if they need to save more, often that's going to come from increasing income.
Mm-hmm.
And especially for people that are in their 20s and 30s who are developing out careers, to have income targets in mind is really important because you don't want it to suddenly be a shock that, I was able to save 5,000 shekel a month when I had one kid, but now I've got 3 or 4 kids and we're struggling every month. It can be difficult to make those adjustments to your career when you're already 45 or 50. Not impossible by any stretch, but more difficult than if you were to do it earlier. And so coming into careers with your eyes wide open, understanding what the growth trajectory can be through promotions, through moving companies and the like, I think is crucially important. Okay.
So I'll be honest, this is all so intimidating for me. Like it's so crazy to think like, okay, there's so much. I feel like, you said earlier that I think personally that you majored in psychology, right? Mm-hmm. So I think I also majored in psychology. And even I feel like with all of this kind of background knowledge on like the psychology of money, I'm sure it's just it's so crazy to me because everything you're saying, I'm like, yeah, for sure. Like I should do all of this. Like I need to book a meeting with you. Like I need to like have someone handle all of this because I don't want to look back in even just 2 years from now and think like, oh my gosh, I should have set this up because my parents have told me my whole life, like literally even just like a couple years, like you just said, can make such a huge difference, can be the difference between, having $1 million shekel in savings or not. So what would you say to people that are just so intimidated by this whole process and I guess kind of have cognitive dissonance? I'm like, okay, I don't really need to handle this now, or like it's probably being handled for me. Like I know personally as an Olah, like I've had conversations with random like pension agents and I've heard the term Keren Hishtalmut, and I'm sure people have explained it to me like 30 times before, and maybe it's because I'm not like a financially minded person in like the technical terms, but it's really hard to kind of digest that this is finances, I guess, no matter where you are in the world, are something that you should be smart about if it's something important to you and you want to be set up for, I guess, a wealthy life, no matter what that means to you. So how would you, I guess, say is the best way to kind of handle all of this like intimidation?
Yeah. Firstly, objectively, it is intimidating. Some of the systems in Israel have quite purposefully, I think, been built to be overly complex and very, very difficult to understand. I had a client last night and we were starting to look through their insurances just to understand what they have. So I had them beforehand order 2 government reports that had the full summary and download the reports from each of the insurance houses. So we started going through them. None of them matched.
What?
Half of them didn't make sense. There were policies that were called life insurance policies that also have health insurance and disability insurance hidden inside them. Like these things are objectively quite complex sometimes. Right. And so it's okay to feel intimidated and it's actually quite the norm that when you're approaching finances without necessarily having a background and without having, like a lot of people don't have a natural affinity or a love for sitting down and, spending I enjoy opening my bank account and my budgeting app, but most people that I work with don't.
Right.
And so I think it's important to start from recognizing that and feeling like it's okay to be in this position, and this is the position that most people are in. The question is then what to do about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I would highly encourage people to start to try to tackle something themselves. What is like worth starting with? I would probably recommend to start with something like the pension investment track. So we have some guides on our website, and people can always, by the way, feel free to contact me if they have questions, that kind of thing.
And I know personally, like, I haven't paid you a dime in years, and you've just given me such amazing advice. Like, you're such a good person, that I really should be paying you. Like, you've given me such good advice, like, over the years of just like random questions here and there. And you're amazing. So thank you for offering that service to everyone.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And it's, I enjoy doing it. When it comes to pensions. So like, if people are listening and they want to do one thing that can have a big impact, it's to log into the pension account. If you don't know where it is, you can look on your payslip. It says Harel or Meitav.
Mm-hmm.
You go in with your Taurat Zehut and your phone number, and you can have a look there. What is my Maslul Hashka? What is my investment track?
Mm-hmm.
And that's already an achievement to know, okay, where is my money invested? Step number 2 is then to read a bit about what are the different investment track options. We've got some good resources on our website as well to understand, like, what are stocks, what are bonds, and does it make sense for me to switch to something like the S&P 500, for example?
Uh-huh.
There are a few tracks that are available. There's like 4 or 5 different ones to choose from.
Mm-hmm.
And spending an hour or 2 hours reading up about that, reaching out to someone that understands a bit about investing and having a chat to them about it, and then potentially clicking 3 buttons on the website to make a change in your investment track
Can be a huge difference.
Something that doesn't take you all that long and can be a huge difference. So that's kind of something that is not simple, but achievable, and that can have a big difference long term. If we want to have a look at the shorter term and just day-to-day stress around finances and do I have enough, and am I in a position where I can save, I would recommend to families, to couples, to download from our website our spending plan worksheet template, which we have there for free. We've built out a template that includes kind of all the spending categories that you spend on in Israel, and not just the regular ones like paying for a kindergarten and food and rent and the like, but also expenses that aren't regular monthly. So on the right-hand side, we've got what we call annual expenses, things that often seem like they come as a surprise, but actually are quite predictable. So, for example, an annual insurance payment, registration for the car, your phone breaks, buying clothing because there's a new season for the kids, suddenly paying for your vacation. So we've got like the list of all those things. And if you sit down and spend an hour or 2 starting to fill it in, sometimes putting in estimates, then suddenly you've got a picture in front of you of what is your income and what is your spending. And that provides a basis to be able to create a spending plan moving forward. Do I need to increase income? Do I need to reduce some expenses? Are there things that would give me more joy spending on? So can I play with my priorities? So starting to do that exercise, I think, is a really good starting point. But I will say that for those that either keep procrastinating because it can be scary and sometimes stressful, and find that they aren't making progress, reaching out to someone, I think, is often worthwhile. Whether it's myself or somebody else, spending a few thousand shekels on getting the full picture of your finances, having a plan moving forward, and understanding whether you're on track and what steps to take to be able to get on track can have such a huge impact, like what we've been talking about. Yeah. I think is really worth the investment. It reminds me of a message that I got from a client about a year or so ago after we'd worked together over 1 or 2 sessions. And they said that they had expected that through working together, they would improve their savings. But we did. But what they actually discovered was most important to them is that they were able to start spending without guilt and stress. And that's also something that a lot of people experience.
Yeah, I don't have that. Like whenever I spend, I feel guilty.
Yeah. And often it's because like you don't know, can I afford this? How's
Right.
that going to impact my future? But when you put together a financial plan, you say, and if you're able to build a plan that shows actually I'm set for my future and I can continue at that rate because I've got pension and everything else by only saving, let's say, 4,000 shekels per month, I can allow myself to put another 2,000 shekel per month automatically into an account for a family vacation every year, and suddenly I can enjoy doing that.
You feel more free.
And have that feeling of freedom.
So to a family that is thinking about Aliyah and wants to make Aliyah but is scared for financial reasons and doesn't know if they can make it here, what would you tell them?
The first thing I'd do is to go to israelbudget.com and to use our Aliyah budgeting calculator.
Okay.
It's a tool that we put together with Nefesh B'Nefesh and with Shivat Zion, where you don't have to know anything about what things cost in Israel. It asks you questions about your family and which area of the country you're thinking of living, and you can play with different options, and cars and a few other things. And it will give you a sample budget. You can have it displayed in dollars and shekels. And I think that's a really important starting point because it gives you a number to work with. Obviously, not every family is going to be the same, and you want to maybe go through the specifics within a budget like that and to see whether you would spend more or less. But having that starting point means that you can start creating a financial plan around Aliyah. The other side of it is then to look at income. So what kind of income would I need to be able to take home that amount? And so on our website, if you go to tools.bluewhitefinance.com, you can find our net income calculator, our take-home pay calculator. So you can, if you've started to just chat with some people in your industry in Israel, someone tells you, yeah, you'll earn 25,000 shekels, given your level of experience in a job in your industry, then you can just type in 25,000 shekels and it'll tell you, yeah, you'll take home 20,000 shekels after tax. So you can start putting together those numbers and understand how viable it is. For some families, you'll be pleasantly surprised and see that because a lot of expenses that you might have had in the States don't exist in Israel,
right,
around healthcare and around education especially.
Right, tuition.
Yeah. That you can get to a place where you can be quite comfortable financially in Israel, depending on your careers. And in other instances, you might see that there is a gap between your planned income and what it typically would cost to live the standard that you're looking for in Israel. And then you can start playing with things, Can I live a little bit further out? Can I do with one car instead of two? What other options do I have in terms of making money? And so that allows you to walk into Aliyah with your eyes open. The other thing that you want to do is start thinking about your savings. So it's very possible to come to Israel with very little saved, particularly for those that are younger, especially for those that are single and don't have, families that they have to support. But it can be a lot more comfortable coming on Aliyah when you've got the money that you need. So like, what is that? What is the money that you need? Ideally, and it's not necessary, but ideally, if you can build up a basic emergency fund, so 3 or 4 months worth of expenses, enough for the move itself, so bring a lift or any of the costs involved in moving, enough to set up a home, depending on what you're bringing. But if you're buying everything in Israel, maybe you want another 40,000 shekels, 40 or 50,000 shekels to buy everything that you need for your home. And then potentially a buffer fund for time to find a job. Those that are lucky and either can keep their job from overseas or can come with something lined up are obviously a lot more comfortable.
Yeah.
But that can be very, very difficult. And many people making Aliyah don't have something already lined up. And so ideally, if you can build up another 5 or 6 months worth of expenses to be able to give yourself the time to really research properly, to understand which career you want, to interview at multiple companies, and to find the job that's right for you. If you can save up all of those 4 buckets, then you'll have a much more comfortable Aliyah.
So I've also heard that Israel gives I think on a family of 4 on average over maybe a year, I think it's around like 80,000 shekel. Is
Yeah.
that accurate?
Yeah, I think it's slightly less than that. The numbers are approximately 20,000 shekel per adult and 10,000 shekel per kid. So that is 80,000 shekel. You're saying family
wow.
of 4. Yep, you're exactly right. It's called the Sal Klita.
Okay.
It's paid out across the first 6 months after arriving. You get a cash payment in the airport, and then it's put into your bank account every month for the 6 months after that.
That feels pretty significant. Like, I know that as adults, I feel like we talk about big numbers like they're small, but like, I don't know, to me, like almost 80,000 shekel is a lot of money.
It is a lot of money. Yeah. And that can often be taken into account when you're planning for those initial purchases or for the buffer fund for finding a job. In our Aliyah budgeting calculator, we automatically calculate for you, depending on how many people you list in your family, what your sal klita will be, and then account for that in the startup costs section. But if we're talking about Aliyah benefits, that's really only the beginning. For anyone making Aliyah, the biggest benefit at the moment is anyone making Aliyah in 2026, so between 5th of November 2025 until the end of 2026, essentially gets an exemption from paying any income tax for the next 5 years.
In Israel?
In Israel. It's a new law that was passed about 2 or 3 months ago.
That's insane.
Yep. And I'm working at the moment with people that have high incomes, so earning, what number did I run? The highest incomes up to like $500,000 you don't even have to be as high as that. If you're earning up to like 1 million shekels a year in 2027 and 2028, then you get a full exemption from income tax, which means that you're saving 300,000 shekel, 400,000 shekels.
Oh my God.
For each of those years.
Wow.
But it's a law that only applies to those that make Aliyah until the end of this year.
So the time is now.
Yeah. And even those that are earning lower amounts, let's say you're earning like a 20,000 shekel salary, you're still saving a few thousand shekel every month by not having to pay any tax.
Wow.
So it's really, really significant.
Yeah, I'd love to hear, what are the other Aliyah benefits you get finance-wise? Sure.
So, for example, purchase tax. If you're buying a property in Israel, coming back to that topic, when you own one property in Israel, you don't have to pay any purchase tax, mas rechisha, up to a property that's worth 2 million shekels. That's for anybody.
Wow.
But if you want to buy a property that's worth more than 2 million shekels, then the purchase tax can start becoming relatively significant. So I don't remember the exact numbers offhand, but something like if you are buying a property worth 3.5 million shekels, regularly you might pay purchase tax of about 100,000 shekels. If you are an Olim and you buy within the first 7 years after making Aliyah, then the purchase tax goes down to 10,000 shekels, something like that.
That's extremely significant.
It's another really significant saving.
I know that you are, like, obviously you do this in Israel, but I'm just curious financially, like these things that you're mentioning, are you aware of any other country that gives such incentives to move to their country?
To immigrants? Not that I know of.
It's really crazy.
Yeah. It's part of the philosophy and the belief here and the importance of Aliyah.
Wow.
I mean, there are lots of other things. For example, there was a new law passed this year as well, specifically for Americans, that if you're obligated to pay Social Security in America and also Bituach Leumi in Israel, for example, if you have an American job, if you are self-employed, then the Israeli government now exempts you from paying Bituach Leumi in Israel for the first 5 years after Aliyah. Because there used to be a big problem, and it still exists for people after the first 5 years after Aliyah, where you've got double taxation of Bituach
that's
Leumi
my
and
problem.
Social Security.
Yeah. Well, so I'm really happy that people who make Aliyah now won't have to have that.
Won't have to have that, at least for a period of time.
Right.
There are lots of other things. There are benefits on buying a car, which I just released a guide on buying a car in Israel, and so I ran all the numbers on it. But there are certain so there is a benefit for buying a car. It's a very significant benefit if you're buying a car that is quite large and quite polluting. It's almost a non-existent benefit if you're buying an electric or a hybrid car. But that's another benefit that exists.
What's the benefit exactly?
It's a discount on the purchase price of the car.
Okay.
Yeah. For the first year, you get about a 90% discount on arnona, on the municipal city taxes. There's a few other things as well, but those are the main ones.
So another difference that I've seen in, I guess I can speak for America versus Israel, is the whole lifestyle of keeping up with the Joneses here versus in America. And here, I seriously don't experience that at all. That's my personal experience. And from my friends in America, I hear that, like everyone's getting these designer clothes for their kids, and that they have to donate a certain amount to the shul if they want to be, respected in the community, things like that. And I'm wondering if, I guess this is more from the psychological side, if you've kind of seen that difference here and what you've noticed about it.
Yeah, I certainly have. I think there's always a subconscious comparison to some extent to the people that are around you. I think that's natural. But I don't think I've ever had a conversation with clients where they say, like, I can't remove that expense because of how it'll make me appear in my community. Or had people kind of express that pain of keeping up with the Joneses within financial planning sessions. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist at all, but it isn't prominent. And I can tell you, like, from my own experience among my friends and community in Modi'in, and I think about what people spend. There are people, friends in the same community, some who earn 20,000 shekel as a family, and some who earn 50,000 shekel as a family, and some who don't have a car, and some who have multiple cars, some who own a home, some who don't. And I think on the whole, people feel comfortable having those differences and not having to necessarily keep up. And I think that is quite a difference here in Israel. We had friends who moved overseas for shlichut for a few years, and they decided to come back early, partly because of what they were seeing as the impact on their kids of the race towards having the next thing, having the designer clothes, having the next electronic device. And they were seeing the impact that was having on their kids, and that wasn't something that they wanted for their family. So I think it is quite different here. And it also removes some level of stress when it comes to financial management.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of leads me to think that a lifestyle that you think that you need to upkeep outside of Israel is just going to be very different here.
Right.
Okay, another thing I want to talk about is how I've heard the statistic that most Israelis are in debt. Why do you think that is?
Firstly, most Israelis are in debt. It's a correct statistic. I think it stems from a few different things. Firstly, when we look at the average, so average incomes are relatively low and expenses are high. And so it's very easy to fall into debt when you don't have significant income. I think also in some cultures in Israel, there's a lot of focus on the here and now, and a sense of yeh beseder, like the future will work itself out.
Yeah.
And that's really the debt mindset of saying, like, I know there are certain things that I need now. I know I need to pay for, do a large party for my kid's bar mitzvah. And that's something that is important for my family, for example. And even though I don't have the money, I'll take out a loan for 40,000 shekels in order to cover that. Or I need a new car right now. My last one broke. And so let's take out a lease, which looks like it only costs me 1,500 shekel or 2,000 shekel a month. But at the end of the day, there's this large balloon loan, essentially this large debt that is waiting for me at the end of the period. So that focus on the here and now.
I mean, my assumption is that I feel like, at least being through a couple wars here, that we're kind of just like, we've been through so much, like, who knows? Like, why don't we just like live now? Do you think that contributes to it?
Yeah, I think that's the idea of just focusing on today and letting the future work itself out. And I think there's also a culture of risk taking.
Yeah. Which is why there's so many startups.
Exactly. And a lot of people that are very financially savvy are very comfortable taking out debt. If you have a look at the the financial forums about, let's say, Keren Hishtalmut, for example, you're able to take a loan against your Keren Hishtalmut rather than pull the money out.
What does that mean?
So if, let's say, you want to pay for a bar mitzvah and you've got 80,000 shekel in your Keren Hishtalmut, you could withdraw 30,000 shekel and pay for the bar mitzvah, or you could leave the 80,000 shekel in. It remains invested in the stock market and, in theory, growing. And you'll take out a loan of 30,000 shekel from the company that's holding your Keren Hishtalmut. They're able to give you a good interest rate because they're holding that money. And then over time, you'll pay off that loan. When families ask me, should I do that? I'm very wary. I wouldn't usually recommend that unless there's clearly enough cash flow to pay that loan off. And usually that wouldn't be my first port of call because I'm not a fan of relying on debt. But the majority of Israelis who are very financially savvy would say, yes, do that. Because if you have a look at your eventual outcome in terms of wealth, on average, it does make sense. If you're paying 5% interest on the loan and you're getting an 8% return on the investment portfolio, then you should take out the loan, continue to earn more on the investment. And once that loan's paid off, you'll end up having more money, which is true. But you have to then think about risk. So what happens if the stock market drops? And what happens if you don't have enough money every month because of whatever happens in your life to make those payments? That's when you start getting into trouble and the loans can start snowballing. And so there's a lot of propensity to take risk, and that, I think, contributes as well to debt. In many cases it works out, but in some cases that is the beginning of getting into financial trouble.
Do you think that finances alone should be the reason that someone does not make Aliyah?
It's a difficult question. Should finances alone be the reason? I think it is possible for every family that wants to be able to make Aliyah, regardless of how much they earn, how much they're coming in with, and what kind of careers they have. That doesn't mean that they'll be able to spend whatever they want. And so if a family understands what the trade-offs are, and they understand that living a life in Israel might mean living in an apartment rather than a house, or living in, a further out area of Israel rather than in Jerusalem, if you can come in with that understanding, then I really think that every family is able to make Aliyah and is able to make a successful Aliyah when you do the proper planning.
So that's really good to note. Is there anything else that you think we should touch on?
Nothing particularly comes to mind, but I think just being able to have these conversations, to talk about how to manage finance in Israel on a technical level, how financial planning impacts all of us and our families is really crucial. And being able to bring this out into the public conversation is something I think amazing that you're doing, both through your work on Instagram and through your podcasts.
Thank you.
Kol hakavod for the work that you're doing on that.
Thank you. From this, I really learned that I need to learn more and invest more in my financial intelligence and knowledge and really set myself up for success. Because I guess, like you said, maybe I have kind of taken on the mentality of Israelis that I'm just kind of in the here and now and focused on buying my home now. And even though on social media, I really do kind of portray this whole, I guess, facade that I'm very financially savvy because I budget. But I guess that I'm learning through this conversation with you that budgeting is maybe 10% of it. I don't know. It's not all of what financial success has the potential to look like. And I'm really grateful for you for opening up this conversation and for enlightening me. And I'm sure many, many other people all across Israel and even around the world who are even thinking about moving here, and to just have this, I guess, light feeling to be able to eventually feel free about their finances, which is, I think finance is the number one cause of divorce. So being able to have that mindset of being able to just have a grip on everything is one of the most amazing things that you can do. So thank you so, so much for being here. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I'll be in contact with you for financial advice.
I think to come back around to what we started with, Financial success is really enjoying the here and now, and budgeting gets you a lot of the way towards that, but also securing your future and knowing that that's secure can bring a lot of peace of mind and confidence. So I'd be happy to help.
Thank you.